I'm your host, Sarah Thomas, and I'm so excited you tuned in to Fit Girl Talk Radio today. If you are joining us on a podcast platform, please hop over to YouTube and watch this video. I have on a very, very beautiful guest today. Her name is Dr. Bindiya, and I had her on in season 1, and I love Dr. Bindiya. So first and foremost, let me say that Instagram people, go follow her because her Instagram is just like full of so much good information, like women's wellness, women's health, moon meditation, manifesting, sauna stuff, infrared. Like, she is so much more than your basic MD, and I love that about her. So go follow her. With that being said, I have her on to talk about basic MD information because it's so important right now. We're going to talk about COVID, kind of like, in my mind, we're kind of in like COVID stage 2 now, right? We're like evolving into this like vaccine time, and so many people have had it and so many people still haven't. And so all of this stuff we're going to talk about today. Dr. Bindiya is coming to us from Atlanta. Dr. Bindiya, welcome. Tell us how you've been since I had you on last.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, a lot has changed in the last like 3 or 4 months. I think we're all kind of adjusting. You know, we're all going to have our 1-year anniversary with COVID in March. So I think we're more settled in with what's going on. But yeah, no, things are good and trying to kind of live our new normal life.
I know. So you guys listening, if you want to know like Dr. Bindiya's story about how she got to where she is, who she is, everything about her, we covered all of that in our previous episodes. So look that up wherever you listen to podcasts and listen to it because it's a good one. And we talked about COVID in the beginning stages of it. We talked about it then. With that being said, Dr. Bindiya and her girls and her husband all actually did get COVID earlier on probably from their nanny, and you can listen to all of that there. However, Dr. Bindiya, so I know you're tracking your antibodies and everything. So you guys still have that?
I do. I actually stock my antibodies. So it's been, I think, almost 8 months since we had COVID. And I have not gotten the vaccine yet because I'm stocking my antibodies like a bad doctor. But we still have antibodies. My husband went ahead and got his vaccine, and I will get my vaccine, guys. So it's not that I'm anti-vaccine or anything. I'm just kind of experimenting a little bit on me to see how long my natural antibodies are lasting. My parents also got COVID, my in-laws and my mom, and they've already got their vaccine. So I'm the only one that hasn't, but yeah, we're doing much better. When my father-in-law was discharged, he was discharged with 6 liters of oxygen. He had a really hard time, but by December, by the grace of God, he actually got weaned off of oxygen, and he's like 95% better. He's not 100% back to normal. He was the only one that was like kind of with the long hauler symptoms and kind of lingering. My husband, myself, and the girls were all fine, and my mom and my mother-in-law are all fine, but he was just kind of dealing with a little bit of stuff. But we've done a lot of stuff for him. Like, we were doing a lot of like IV therapy, a lot of detoxing, supporting his mitochondria. And as a functional medicine provider, like, I knew exactly what was going on. So it was easy for me to help identify that. And he was also working with his pulmonologist to do like pulmonary rehab. And so fortunately, he's much better than he was. And overall, I think our family is doing much better. So thank you for asking.
Yes. Okay, so let's kind of start with the people that have already had COVID, since we're kind of already talking about that. How long are antibodies staying around, and what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so great question. You know, statistically, everything that I was reading and I'm still reading is antibodies can last anywhere from 60 to 90 days for some people. That's why you can still get reinfected with COVID and get it a second time. And actually, I know a couple patients that have gotten reinfected within 3 months. But then there's also data that's saying that antibodies will last up to 6 months. And for me, like I said, I'm at that 8-month mark, so I've kind of surpassed it. My theory behind this is because there's different variants of COVID. I was saying this last year before that we were even talking about variants. that it really depends on the variant you got when you first got COVID. If you got a milder case, that could be a reason why your antibodies only lasted 6 months or 6 weeks or 2 months. And if you had a harsher case, then maybe that's why it lasted longer. Also, because of the different variants, makes it easier for you to catch another strain. So for example, if I had strain A, and if I'm exposed to strain A again, because I have antibodies, my body recognizes that and will protect me from that. However, my body is not going to recognize strain B, C, and D. So if I'm exposed to those strains, there's a possibility I still can get the virus again. And that is why it's important, even if you've had COVID, to get your vaccine. Again, I'm not a good example, and I apologize about that, but I am just kind of experimenting to see how long antibodies actually do last, because we still don't know that. We still also don't know, once you get the vaccine, how long the antibodies last with the vaccine. I think that the antibodies will last maybe 6 months, and I think this summer we'll have more data from all the people that took it in December to kind of know for sure. But my suspicion is we're probably going to end up having to take booster shots maybe once or twice a year, just to kind of keep us healthy.
Okay. So let's talk about people that have not gotten COVID yet. What precautions, I mean, whether they have got it yet or not, it sounds like everybody still needs to be taking the same precautions. So has that changed since I had you on last?
Yeah, because of these variants, because of the South African variant, the Brazil variant, the UK variant, one of the recommendations I have been implementing in my office and in telling everybody is actually double mask now, guys. So if you're not double masking when you're out and about, please do so, because these strains are a lot more contagious and they're actually a lot more deadlier. And so I am recommending, obviously social distance, wash your hands, all that good stuff. But in addition, double mask as well.
So as far as the mask go at this point, what research, what is it showing about, the cloth masks that people have made at home versus the like paper surgical masks versus the N95s? And like, is that stuff that we're ordering on Amazon, are those even really N95s? Like, so what is that?
So, the stuff that we're ordering on Amazon and we think that they're N95 probably are not N95. They're like knockoffs, which you've got to be really careful. If it, kind of common sense, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So just pay attention to that. Obviously, my recommendation for most people is to still wear a cloth mask and then do a surgical mask on top. It doesn't matter. If you've got 2 surgical masks, wear 2 surgical masks. If you've got 2 cloth masks, wear 2 cloth masks. I think the moral of the story is to just double mask if you're in public, especially if you happen to be at high-risk places like the gym. A lot of people have gotten back to going out and eating in public and eating at restaurants. And that's where, I'll tell you, from my patient population, the majority of the time that people get caught and make a mistake and get the virus is because they ate at a restaurant, or because it was someone they allowed into their home, even though that person was masked, they weren't double masked. The yoga studios and gyms have been a big one. So initially people were going back to these gyms and yoga studios, but they were not wearing a mask. Now you're still wearing a mask, but my recommendation would be, as uncomfortable as it is to work out and do yoga with a double mask. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then don't go. Like, it's that easy. And I hate saying that because I think physical fitness is so important and necessary, but you have to also be healthy about it and be smart about it.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about children at this point before we go into vaccines. A majority of schools are back in business now, face to face. I've seen a ton of precautions with, like some having plexiglass around their desks and things like that. So what are we seeing in children at this point?
Right now for children, I think what we are seeing is there's less spread amongst children, which is a good sign. The schools that have the outbreaks, it's actually because of the teachers. It's not because of the kids, right? Kids are compliant. They're wearing their masks. Majority of the time, they're following the guidelines. But if there is an outbreak, it's because there was a breach in protocol. Does that make sense? And that's the biggest thing. Most schools have figured that out pretty early. So they're very strict about, temperature checks, about wearing masks, kids being in their pods and kind of following protocol. So I think for the most part, I think we're doing okay. Hopefully, I do suspect that more schools will be opening up soon, but there's still a lot of schools and still a lot of parents that have concerns, and they're still going to keep their kids virtual learning till the rest of the year. And I think that's okay. You have to do what's comfortable for you. You have to do what's comfortable for your family. And again, I've said this before, if you are high risk or someone in your family is high risk, you think twice about sending your child to school, and that's okay. And that's appropriate. If your child is around grandparents all the time and they're, above 65, you may want to think twice about, them going to school, even though they still have a mask on, even though they're around plexiglass and they're around the same 4 kids every day. You just have to make smart decisions.
Absolutely, totally agree. Okay, we're just like powering through, but yeah. Dr. Bindiya's time is very valuable. So, let's talk vaccines and kind of what we've learned about them in the last, it feels like weeks, probably months at this time, month or two. The different vaccines that are available and kind of what that means for us.
Yeah, so, right now we have 2 vaccines. It's the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine. Pfizer vaccine, you get 2 doses at 1 dose on the first day and then 121 days later. Moderna vaccine, same thing, but it's you get one at day 1 and then day 28. A couple things I do want to say about the vaccine that I think are important. Make your appointment for the second vaccine immediately after you get your first vaccine, because there's been stories of shortages and things that are not accountable for. I know some of my colleagues and doctors actually didn't get their second vaccine in time. It's okay if you don't get your second vaccine in time. You have up until 6 weeks to get that second vaccine. So keep that in mind too. For some reason, if you end up traveling or there's a shortage or whatever is going on, you have up until 6 weeks. We don't recommend that you mix and match vaccines. So we don't recommend that you take Moderna and then take Pfizer. However, if that is what happens, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. The studies were done on the 2 same brands of vaccines. So that's where the mixed data is, or that's where there, I should say, limited data, not mixed data, but limited data on mixing and matching vaccines. But hey, if that's what you need to do, it's okay. In order for us to have what we call herd immunity, we need to have 85% to 90% of us vaccinated. So before last year, when we were looking at the research and data, when we were excited about vaccines, that was only 70%. Now, the reason that number has changed is because not only do we have more variants now, the vaccine should work. So the way the vaccine works, it's working on the spike protein, right? And so the variants happens to be on the spike protein as well. So ideally, the mRNA vaccines should work for all the variants, but at the same time, we do not know that for sure, right? So there's still a little bit more information that needs to be surfaced on, if the Moderna vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine is going to work in all these new Brazil variants and all these South African variants and whatever Southern California variants. I mean, there's probably more variants than we realize. And we're just now studying them and researching and actually sequencing them right now. So that's kind of what's going on in the vaccine world. I'm kind of excited about the J&J vaccine personally, because that's a 1-dose vaccine. And that also means that compliance is going to be better, because I know a lot of people will get the first vaccine and then feel like they don't need the second vaccine, and they're like, oh my God, that was just too painful or uncomfortable, or they forget about it because life happens. Like if you're a busy mom, or if you're someone that has a busy life, you could forget to take that second vaccine. So having the J&J vaccine really excites me, because it's just one vaccine. We'll be able to vaccinate more people, and I can't wait for that to be in circulation.
So after you get your first dose, what percentage are you protected, I guess?
So So when we talk about getting that first vaccine, it takes up to 10 days for you to actually build up some immunity and antibody resistance. So it's still possible for you to still get COVID if you were exposed to COVID before you got the vaccine or within those first 10 days. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I got the vaccine and then I got COVID. The vaccine gave me COVID. No, that is not what happened. You were exposed to it before. You need to have the 2 doses. So keep that in mind. I can't tell you the exact percentages of protection because I don't want to quote you wrong, but I think you definitely need both. Like the data is, in order to get 95% efficacy, you do have to have both vaccines. If I'm not mistaken, I think you're about 60-ish% protected with only the first vaccine alone.
And so I heard, and this could be wrong, but I heard that the vaccine is going to go all the way down to 12-year-olds. What have you heard about how young it's going to go?
So I know Pfizer is now studying on the younger kids population. Right now, it's still the guideline is just 16 and above. So that's what it is right now, 16 and above. I think later this year we'll know definitively if we can safely give it to younger kids. We're still they're still providing the vaccine in a very strategic way, right? It was first healthcare workers, people that lived in nursing homes and that community. Now it's above 65. So you have to look at your community and where you are and what your risk levels are. But, there are still a lot of people that do not want the vaccine. And there's more vaccines available. So I think if you want the vaccine and if you find out that it's available, you could probably get the vaccine in your community. You just have to talk to your local health department, do some research, some Google searches. And, if you want the vaccine, you probably are able to get it.
Yeah, it's funny, not funny, but interesting. I'm in St. Louis and it's been not a very good rollout here as far as I understand. I've seen a lot of people with like elderly parents or grandparents, sick or not sick, that are trying to get the vaccine, and a lot of people in St. Louis haven't been able to get it. My grandfather actually was in St. Louis, and then he has a second home in New Mexico that he always goes down to in February. So he was on the list in St. Louis, never heard anything. Got to New Mexico, registered, and he got his shot one day later. So it's just interesting how it's all happening and all unfolding within our same, United States, but it's all so different for everybody in different communities.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times, like when my in-laws were trying to get their vaccine, it was very, very disorganized, unfortunately. But then, like when my husband got his, it was very organized. When my brother and mom got theirs, like it was very organized. So it just depends. Like some communities have really like come together and have kind of worked out the kinks. And then there's some communities that, it's again, this is new. They've never done this before. They're kind of learning from their mistakes, and hopefully by the time the younger population, eventually gets it in the next couple months, or even maybe by May, that it'll be a much smoother process, but I still encourage, you talk with your primary care doctor, your provider about if you would be a good candidate for a vaccine, but ideally, 90% of us need to get this vaccine so we can get back to a normal, healthy world that we used to remember.
Absolutely. So talk to us briefly about people that have gotten the vaccine and why they still need to wear their mask.
Yeah, so that's great because again, just because you got the vaccine does not mean that you can pretend like it's 2019 again and life was all normal. I wish that were the case. So just because you get the vaccine, a couple things can still happen. One, you can still contract COVID, okay, and you can be an asymptomatic spreader. Okay, so that's the first thing. The vaccine basically protects your body. Your body will build up antibodies when you're exposed to the virus. So now your symptoms of COVID are as mild as a cold. So you may not even realize you have COVID because it's like just like sniffles or a little tickle in your throat or whatever it is. It's not the shortness of breath. It's not the dry coughing that you would have got if you didn't have the vaccine. So just because you get the vaccine, you can still get COVID. That's the first thing I want to emphasize. The second thing I want to emphasize that I think is really important is just because you have the vaccine doesn't mean you're not going to spread it to anyone else. And you can still be an asymptomatic spreader to your grandparents, to your loved ones, okay? Because you have the vaccine. So you still need to wear a mask around your loved ones, your family members, your coworkers. When you go to the grocery store, you can't take that for granted. So yes, your symptoms will be milder. Yes, you're not going to die from COVID, and those are all wonderful things. But unfortunately, you can still spread this to other people, which is really important.
Absolutely, yes. And I feel like I haven't seen enough information about that out in the public yet. So I'm glad that you were able to clear that up.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Bindiya, I feel like I have touched on everything that I wanted to get out and in the air. Is there anything else that you want the general public to understand or know at this point?
You know, the biggest thing that I really want people to know is, we have to work together collectively as a community. I know this is tough times. I know many of us are struggling, but we need to look at the light at the end of the tunnel. And, I am starting to see that, especially with the vaccine rollout. It is going to get better. It's not going to be the same normal that we remember it being. And I unfortunately think masks are probably going to be around for a while. But we do need to work together. We do need to work together, find resolutions. If you're able to help out with the vaccine rollout, if you're able to just help out your community in some sort of way, maybe that means just you getting the vaccine, that's helping your community out. That to me is, you're going to go such a long way. So that's what I really want people to kind of focus on this year. And we all need to work together for each other. It's not just about us and fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for each other at the end of the day.
Yes. You guys, I don't know if you guys can hear that noise, but I feel like it's like echoing when I talk. Anywho, go follow Dr. Bindiya. All of her information is so good. I already talked with her before we started recording. I'm gonna have her on again later in the year to talk about something besides COVID.
Yeah.
She is so much more than that, and I just know that there's still a lot of people with a lot of questions about what's going on. And I hope that maybe this cleared up some stuff for anybody out there that is still confused by what resources to look at and trust. So Dr. Bindiya, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your information. I love following you. I love having you on, and keep sharing and spreading all of your knowledge. It's so appreciated. And I love everything you share.
Thank you so much. It was great being on with you again.